Welcome back to How to Genealogy. You've met Dory. In this video, taking notes, we're going to write down the important facts from a vital record and create a citation that tells us and other people where we found the record and then who originally created it. And then these are clues that allow future researchers to find that record again if they need it. We'll use the notes from multiple vital records to create and improve the biographies of our subjects and their close family members who also appear in those records. And we'll use the assertions contained in those records to make arguments for adding to or changing the story of our families. And finally, we'll update the list of open issues that's guiding our research. I'm going to start today's video by opening up my open issues. So you can see that to answer some questions, we have to break them down to get to the information that we need first in order to answer them, just like we did in the last video with the two Cascio sisters. I can't just ask a database, say, so what happened to Maria Cascio and her little sister Jenny, and expect any kind of a reasonable answer. I have to break it down into questions that the databases of indexed records on Family Search hold the answers to. Both Dorothy and Paul, my grandparents, they were born here to parents who were born in the province of Palermo in Sicily. My grandmother didn't tell me this, but I know from what I've read that Sicilian families practiced arranged marriage. It was very common, even in the first generations who married in the United States, in Sicilian immigrant families, for the marriages to be selected and approved by the parents. Mothers in particular would make those arrangements. When Giuseppe Morello, the New York City gangster, was widowed and his mother thought it would be a good idea for him to remarry, she sent for a couple of sisters from Corleone to come to New York, and he chose the one that he wanted to marry. I don't have any evidence one way or the other for why my great-grandfather Leo Luca Cascio married Lucia Soldano from Corleone, but I assume that it was for their family's mutual benefit. But the story of my grandparents' marriage is a different one. My grandmother told me that she and my grandfather fell in love as teenagers, and they resolved to marry even though they had resistance from both families. She told me that they ran away together and got married, and then they went back to their families. They didn't live together as a married couple for a couple of years until the families had both accepted their decision, and then they got married again in a church in New York. And I thought it was such a crazy story because why would you need to get married twice? Why would you get married and then go home to your parents' house? What was the point? Marriage meant something different to my grandparents and something else to their parents than it does to me. And each generation has had to deal with these disconnects where we've had really fundamentally different core values from the generations that came before us. I tried finding my grandparents' marriage record online, but I was not able to find it on Family Search or in the Brides and Grooms database. When I was looking for them, this is a few years ago, the New York City Doris website did not yet exist, but I looked for them there today, and I still wasn't able to find them when I searched by their names. Sometimes you strike out with these online searches. There are workarounds, and some of the same ones that you'd use in any brick wall scenario you could use here perhaps. You can search for their siblings, for instance. You can use secondary sources to make a case. But I needed this marriage record because I had nothing on my grandmother's family at all. I didn't even know her parents' names. And though I knew her sister's name, I still hadn't found my grandmother's family in a census from before her marriage. So I finally had to write away to New York City Department of Health for their marriage record a few years ago. And this is the record that they sent me of my grandparents' marriage application. So in looking at this paper record, I'm going to ask the same kinds of questions, and I'm going to write down the same kind of information that I would for a record that I found online. What record is this? What date was it made? What event does it provide primary evidence of? And what secondary information does it contain? Marriage records are often more than one record or form or document or whatever you want to call it. In the United States, every state does it a little differently, but the typical components are an application for a license to marry, which once it's approved can in some cases become a license, And then, as in this case here, there's a space on the form to officially record the marriage taking place. So this whole 2-page document is a certificate of marriage registration from the City of New York, Office of the City Clerk, Marriage License Bureau. The first part of the form is a marriage license issued by the New York State Department of Health, Division of Vital Statistics. And you can see up here at the top that it says, this is a marriage license and not a marriage certificate. This version of the record of my grandparents' marriage is not the original. I mean, you can see that this is not an 80-year-old record here. This is a certified copy. It's been embossed with a seal, and there's a stamp on the back of the second page that this says this was certified on the 8th of February 2016. So in taking notes on this record, you want to transcribe everything that is unique to this record and then put a citation underneath it. In Family Search, the citation is simplified for you, and it has a URL associated with it so that you can come back to it when you need to, and you can just click there and boom, there's your record. Here, we're going to have to write our own citation. There's a few rules of thumb that I use that are based on citations in APA style. I like doing it like this because the first thing you see is what kind of record this is, who the primary subjects of the record are, and the date that it was created. And if there are any numbers that uniquely identify this record, like a certificate number or a registration number, I put those in the citation as well, because that's the kind of data that somebody might use to find this record again. And after that, I'm entering what kind of a form this is and what office or department and municipality created it. This governmental entity should always be able to put their hands on this record. It's their record. The last thing is how I got this record, which can be a clue to anybody else about how they can get a copy of their own. I requested it through the health department and they mailed it to me, and I can prove that by showing the embossed stamps on both pages and on the back of the second page. So I've got all my notes here from my grandfather, Paul Cascio, in one place in this Google document. And when I'm searching through records looking for them and taking notes on what I find, I enter them here and I keep them in chronological order. But this is just a temporary holding spot. After I take these notes, I want to get them into some genealogy software. And this is something I talked about in video 1. Linear notes are not going to cut it when you're documenting a family tree, which branches like a tree or a graph. And if I'm just beginning to write biographies for a family using this research, I start with whoever I have the most complete chronology for, adding the sources to their profile in order, and I might edit these down or add some introductory text. I can format this depending on what application I'm using. In WikiTree, where I usually tend to work, I add hyperlinks using their markup language. And I'm not just copying what I've recorded from the forms, because that's, let's face it, boring to read. So I convert this information into a narrative. Whatever I think is important from the forms is going to be included. Then I use the citation as the source for that part of the story, so like a footnote. So I struck out searching for my grandparents' marriage record on Doris using their names, but I wanted to try it one more time. So this time I used the certificate number that appears on the certified copy of their marriage record that I got by mail. Manhattan, 1941, certificate number 2690. And it came up. You can see that this version of the record is a little bit cleaner, a little easier to read. There's some other differences as well, and one of these might be important, so let's check these out. So here, at the bottom of the last page, this note was not included in the version I got in the mail, but it's so important. This is the first marriage my grandmother told me about. She maybe didn't remember that they went out of state that first time. The affidavit for a license to marry, which I found here on the Doris website, confirmed this bit of family lore and added information when and where my grandparents first married. This is an example of why it's important to be very specific and clear about where you learned a fact that you're going to use in your genealogy, whether it's to improve the accuracy of the family tree or to add a compelling story to your stock of family lore. It's also an example of why you might bother to continue looking for a record that you already have. I had no idea that the affidavit existed. I assumed that the Department of Health would have sent me everything that they had. Each of the versions of their marriage names the parents of the bride and the groom. Here is my first piece of evidence for my grandmother's parents' names, Joseph Longo and Rosalia D'Agostino, both born in Italy. And since they were born in Italy, I assume that Joseph was once called Giuseppe. Finding out more about my grandmother's parents goes on my list of open issues. My grandmother has a sister who's a little younger than her, and I know that they were both born in New York City. So I assume that my great-grandparents both emigrated and lived in New York City together. In searching for Joseph and Rosalia, I'll be looking for them living together in New York City with their children. I'll look for them emigrating. I'll look for death records for them. My first searches for them will be on Family Search, where I can cast a broad net and get lots of different kinds of records in one place. Records that name both of them in relation to one another would be more clear matches than ones where they appear separately. Just like when I was looking for the Cassios, the unique identifiers that set my Longo and D'Agostino relations apart is who they're related to. So if I can find one record that is a very clear match, it'll give me more clues, that secondary information, that'll help me to find more matches on my relatives. So here are the questions that I'm going to add to my open issues. And I wish success to you in your searches. I have some ideas for which videos I'm going to do next. And if you want to weigh in on this, please join me on Patreon and drop me a line. I'm always interested in knowing what my patrons think and what they want. And if you let me know what you like and what you want to see more of, I will endeavor to fulfill that. Thanks again for joining me here. Until next time, take care.